Chapter 6. Keila performs some minor insignificant attacks and then gains enormous popularity from a failed housewide publicity stunt. Chapter 6.1. Keila robs the gadolinium mines in the Tangle Dominion and humiliates Mark White. Keila was studying the well-defended perimeter to gadolinium mines in the Tangle Dominion owned and operated by House White. She was angry with her supposed ally, President Hilas Petrakis, who had promised to send soldiers to help her attack the mines, but had failed to find anyone stupid enough to participate, as he was broke as a beggar. Keila was considering her odds for success. She had a dozen followers, and the base was guarded by a garrison of 1,000 soldiers. While it would be glorious to attack the base with guns blazing, driving the Terrans away, Keila questioned whether she had enough plot armour to survive such a ploy. She concluded that she hadn't. Keila also considered summoning the powers of Rangda to give her superpowers, but she remembered what Rangda had said a couple of weeks earlier, and she didn't want to slam her head against a wall to contact Rangda just to be rejected again. So she had to come up with another solution. But what would she do? Meanwhile, Mark White was studying the featureless and cold desert landscape surrounding the gadolinium mine. He was similar to Bjorn Muller, as he was supposed to be a prominent member of his family, but due to his constant fuck-ups, he wasn't. In Mark's case, his father had condemned him to guard this bloody mine while the mutant freak Alicia White travelled around doing all the fun stuff. Mark sighed. He hadn't fucked up anything lately, and hopefully he would soon be promoted to something more interesting. He logged into his Swoonder account, hoping to get some tail, which was easier said than done, as the amounts of females around the mines were non-existent. The use of gadolinium as a fictional material in a story is, as far as the author is aware, a new and unique plot device. Unlike most of other fictional materials, such as vibranium, etc., gadolinium actually does exist and can be bought on eBay for $20. But it's still obscure enough to be used for fictional usage in a sci-fi story. For the sake of Divine Sedition and the Divine Space Gods, Part 2, gadolinium was a priceless material that was used by the magnetic field generators on the Martian North Pole and South Pole. Suddenly, Keila got a moment of inspiration and realized how she would be able to infiltrate the gadolinium base. She would organize a Swoonder date with the commander of the base, Mark White. Unfortunately, Mark rejected her contact attempt, and Keila felt personally offended until she realized why. She was using the Swoonder account of the less than attractive Rose Menakis. What she needed to do was to use the alter ego of an incredibly sexy femme fatale to make Mark White swoon and give her access to the base and his private quarters. The obvious choice for a sexy femme fatale was herself, but she rejected the idea. Even if Mark White was dumb enough to not recognize the super sexy poster girl for the Martian Revolution, there would surely be someone who did. But what about her twin sister, Keila Eisenstein? Keila was sexy and a lot less famous than Keila, so she'd be the perfect Swoonder profile. Keila used the Zetan external DNA modifier and changed her appearance to that of Keila Eisenstein. And then she used the Swoonder app and created a perfect 3D hologram replica of her body with her phone for her profile. Mark White was a bit skeptical when he received a second sworn request within 5 minutes. The base was located in the wilderness, and there was usually months between interactions on the app. Was this an elaborate plan by the Resistance to infiltrate the base and steal the valuable gadolinium? Then he received a nude hologram of Keila Eisenstein and decided that this was his lucky day and not an elaborate ploy to infiltrate the base. 10 minutes later, Keila and Mark White were alone in his private quarters on the base. Normally checking in new visitors and getting security clearances would take forever, but Mark White, being a prominent member of his faction, ignored these steps as he didn't want to ruin the mood now that he finally was about to get some tail. Keila said, "So sexy, Mark. I hope you're into bondage because I brought all the stuff." Mark said, "Not really, to be honest. Can't we just have normal sex instead?" Keila said, "No, because I'm a kinky femme fatale, so it's my way or the highway. Besides, I don't see a line of women outside your room." Mark said, "You're right, Christina. Have it your way then. Tie me up." After tying Mark to the bed, Keila continued her seduction attempts. Keila said, "You know what is really sexy, Mark? The password to that security console on the wall. Give me the password and I'll lick you from top to bottom." Mark said, "No, first we have sex and then I'll give you access to the mainframe, okay?" This answer gave Keila a conundrum. Was she able to trust Mark, and would he actually give her access to the mainframe after a round or two of sex? She realized that best way to find out was to ask Rangda, who for some reason seemed to be more or less all-knowing. Keila walked up to Mark, gagged him, and then she slammed her head into the wall to contact Rangda. Rangda said, "No!" Keila said, "But you don't know my question yet." Rangda said, "Oh, I'm not giving superpowers to fight your way out of this very well-guarded base." Keila said, "That wasn't my question. My question is, will Mark give me the access codes to the mainframe if I have sex with him first?" Rangda said, "No idea. I don't know him. But why would anyone give up access codes to the mainframes to their casual hookup after having sex with them?" Keila said, "Yeah, I know. I was a bit skeptical about that too." Rangda said, "As you should. Men are pigs. Or delicious. But fuck him if you want. The access code to the mainframe is Sexy Stud Mark 69. Keila said, "Thanks, Rangda." Rangda said, "Cool. Thanks for having a simple request for once. When are you opening the portals on Earth to facilitate my return to the normal universe, by the way?" Keila said, "Oh, it's on my to-do list." Rangda said, "Yeah, right. Talk to you later, Keila." After her conversation with Rangda, Keila activated the evacuation signal, and she could see how everyone abandoned their posts and rushed to their transport shuttles, retreating to Phobos. Seemingly, they were not that big fan of their boss, because no one came by Mark's private quarters to make sure that he was okay. After the defenders had left, Keila called Melchior, and he arrived with the Edenite troops, robbing the place dry of gadolinium and downloading all the files on the mainframe. Before leaving the base, Keila changed to her real appearance, and then took the ultimate selfie, featuring her with a big grin and the bound and gagged Mark White in the background. Keila Eisenstein was now back from the dead. Chapter 6.2. Joachim Muller is furious with Bjorn and Max Wellington. Joachim Muller was furious. He was at Phobos base and they had run out of his favorite food and favorite drinks. This wouldn't have been an issue under normal circumstances, but now his return back to Earth was delayed due to the unfathomable incompetence of Mark White and his soldiers guarding the gadolinium mines. What kind of idiots left their posts without even spotting an enemy and left their commander tied up with an infamous terrorist? But Mark White and his idiotic soldiers was John White's problem. Joachim had problems closer to home. His idiot son, Bjorn. He assembled Bjorn and Max Wellington to discuss the issue. Joachim Muller said, "Bjorn, you have been naughty again." Bjorn Muller said, "Look, how can I be to blame for Mark White and his idiot soldiers losing all of our gadolinium supplies to the Martian Humanist Alliance?" Joachim Muller said, "True, it's impressive that John White manages to have worse children than I do, considering how retarded my children are. The only son that shows some potential for leadership prefers the company of men." Bjorn Muller said, "But Benjamin can't be gay for real. We Mullers have perfect genetics. He's probably just pretending to be gay to spite you." Joachim Muller said, "So you reckon that your younger brother have pretended to be gay for 40 years straight just to spite me? I have walked in on him in the act more than once. The bastard does not understand the concept of locking his apartment door." Bjorn Muller said, "Maybe you should try knocking on the door before walking in." Joachim Muller said, "Knocking on an unlocked door in my own building? Are you for real?" Anyways, I have a confession to make. While most Mullers indeed have perfect genetics, you and your brothers are the exception. You see, the scientist who perfected your DNA was actually a mortal enemy of our faction, who was very dedicated to his cause and played the long game. Apparently, we murdered his entire town and family 30 years earlier. And instead of planting a bomb or starting a rebellion, he studied hard to become the world's leading expert in genetic optimization of embryos. Obviously, we Mullers want the best scientists that money can buy. So we hired him, but he intentionally fucked up every embryo by implanting hidden critical flaws. When we finally caught on and tortured him, he just said, "Worth it," gave me the finger and chugged a hidden cyanide capsule. The worst part is that while he died quickly, I have suffered in silence for over 60 years over what he did. Jacob Silvergild, fuck you. Bjorn Muller said, "But why didn't you tell me? If you had told me about my bad genes, I might have tried harder and with a more humble approach to life." Joachim Muller said, "I have called you an idiot for over 60 years, and it has taken you until now to get it?" Bjorn Muller said, "And yet I'm not the one falling into the classic German mistake of blaming everything on the Jews." Joachim Muller said, "Don't worry, I'm still blaming you for your fuck-ups. I'm just telling you why you constantly do. So with Keila alive and kicking, humiliating our friends in House White, what should I do with you now that everyone knows of your failure to kill her? Bjorn Muller said, ideally, you'll promote me to a cushy position on the House Muller board and leave Admiral Max Wellington to deal with all the grunt work on Mars. Joachim Muller said, nope, that's not going to happen. Do you have any suggestions, Max? Max Wellington said, I'm in support of Bjorn's idea. If you can't fire him from the Space Navy, then promote him to the House Muller board. Either way, he'll stop making my life miserable. Joachim Muller said, well, sorry to make you disappointed, gentlemen, but I will give Bjorn one more chance to stop Keila. Fail that, and I might have to end your career permanently, Bjorn. Bjorn said, oh, I wouldn't mind retirement. Joachim Muller said, oh yes, retirement was what I was referring to, not. Bjorn Muller said, great, our satellites have spotted Keila traveling on her own westwards from the Mishra outpost. While we could blow up her vessel with our orbital lasers, Mark White suggested that we attack her with a small army on live television and make a spectacle of her death. Joachim Muller said, just blow her up with a bloody laser. Stop doing stupid things, Bjorn. Bjorn said, sorry, Dad, but the House-wide army is already in position. We cannot use the lasers now or we might hit our allies. Joachim said, great. A publicity spectacle orchestrated by you and Mark White. What could possibly go wrong? As it turned out, a lot could go wrong, and Bjorn's idiotic publicity spectacle turned out to be what finally ignited the real Martian Revolution. Chapter 6.3, Keila gets superpowers and wipes out an entire platoon on live television. Bjorn Muller was watching the hovercraft highway between the Mishra outpost and the Olympic Republic capital, near Athena. If his satellite was to be believed, Keila's hovercraft would be passing by soon, and drive straight into the explosive trap rigged for her. The cameras were filming and it would be a great spectacle. Such a foolproof plan, and yet Bjorn felt the foreboding feeling that this was going to be yet another embarrassing failure. He turned to his colleague, Mark White. Look, Mark, my father thought that we should blow her up with her orbital lasers. Why are we making things overly complicated? Mark said. Because she humiliated me on social media. She stole all my gadolinium, tattooed a deck on my forehead, and posted selfies with me bound up and gagged. I'm going to do what anyone would do. Have my man kill her in an ambush and then revive her corpse, so I can kill her myself. Bjorn said, that doesn't sound very brave or heroic, to be honest. You might as well use the lasers. Mark White said, no, if I use the lasers, there will only be a pile of ash left of her. And how am I supposed to prove her death then? So, she's passing by our kill zone now. I press this button and boom, there she goes. Jealous that it seemed to be Mark White and not him that would kill Keila, Bjorn had enough and went back to the Phobos base. Officially because he had more pressing matters to attend to. Meanwhile, Keila was flying out of the windscreen in 300 kilometers an hour, heading for deadly head-on collision with a nearby rock, when Rangda intervened, paused the time and contacted her. Rangda said, "Ouch, seems like you are in real trouble now, less than half a second away from your death." Keila said, "Wait a second, how did you manage to say all of that in less than half of a second?" Rangda said, "Wahahaha, that's because I stopped the time. I'm not an overpowered space demon for nothing." Keila said, "Great stuff, Rangda. Is your evil crystal fully charged yet? I clearly need all the help I can get." Rangda said, "No, they're not. But I found a way to channel your abilities through draining your life force. You will probably age 15 years overnight from the ritual, though. Don't complain about your aging tomorrow or I'll kill you." Keila said, "Do you mind if I complain about it to Metatron?" Rangda said, "I don't give a shit as long as I don't have to hear it." Keila said, "We have a deal, Rangda. I'm ready." Rangda said, "Good. Remember to set the Zetan ballistic energy absorber to reverse. That will slow down your speed enough to not kill you upon collision. Unfortunately, it will also drain your batteries." Keila said, "Got it." Time restarted and Keila flew headfirst into a rock, bleeding profusely from a big cut on her head. "Ow, you fucking idiot, Rangda," was her first thought. But then she realized that she had been saved from certain death by her very unlikable possessor. Keila wasn't safe yet though, as all her weapons had been destroyed when her hovercraft blew up. And her magical Zetan technologies would not work either, as the batteries were out. And she was facing an army of 40 well-equipped and well-trained soldiers. Ouch! Fortunately, she had a pistol with 8 rounds, and the ability to temporarily stop time to get an overview. A plan immediately came up in her mind. She would spend the 8 rounds the following way. 1. Shoot the triggering mechanism on the flying assault drone to keep it stuck in firing mode. 2. Shoot the steering mechanism on the flying assault drone to make it spin uncontrollably while firing to hit unsuspecting white troops. 3. Shoot the latch on the bombing hovercraft to make it drop its payload below. 4. Shoot the safety pin on one of the enemy's grenades to make it explode. 5. Shoot the trigger on the enemy's rocket launchers, causing it to fire a rocket and destroy the enemy's tank. 6. Shoot the enemy's heavy machine gun at the exact moment he fired at her, causing him to lose his aim and mow down his friends instead. 7. Shoot over her shoulder without aiming to hit the oncoming soldier that was rushing towards her with a machete. Then pick up said machete and throw it in the chest of another soldier. 8. Jump 20 meters up in the air to Mark White's hovercraft, hijack the hovercraft, and take him hostage so that the Terran would not fire their orbital laser at her when she made her escape. Keila resumed time and everything came to happen exactly as she had anticipated, except for her pistol being empty when she reached Mark White. Something he felt compelled to comment on. "Why are you threatening me with an empty pistol, Keila?" Keila said, "Look, Mark, I just survived an explosion that should have killed me, and then I proceeded to kill or maim the majority of a 40-man platoon in a matter of seconds, using only a pistol with 8 bullets. I think I'm dangerous enough to threaten you even with an empty pistol. Mark said, Good point. What do you want me to do? Keila said, Shut up and drive as quickly as possible. We have to outrun an orbital laser. After this, they drove as quickly as possible until they were out of sight for the laser. Once they were out of sight, Keila bound and gagged Mark White and left him in the wilderness again. But this time, she was nice enough to leave him fully clothed. After that, Keila hurried to a Martian Humanist Alliance safe house near Athena and slept for weeks. Now, for anyone that feels that this combat scene was so far-fetched and completely unrealistic, have you seen any AAA Hollywood action movie released in the last 30 years or so? Chapter 6.4 Joachim delegates to Benjamin to find an assassin to kill Bjorn. A month later, Joachim Muller and Benjamin Muller was on their way back to Hanstatt after attending a Terran Council meeting in America. The Muller and White alliance in control of the council had been roasted badly for the Keila Eisenstein's debacle. But although the other factions had pledged to stop undermining them and stand united against the Martian resistance, both Joachim and Benjamin knew that this would never happen. Their Martian enemies were getting stronger by the day, and instead of standing united against the enemy, all the Terran factions were fighting among themselves, trying to benefit from the chaos instead. Sadly, for Joachim and Benjamin, they were no different from the rest of the Terrans, and they were too busy plotting the murder of Bjorn. Benjamin Muller said, So, are we agreed now that I'm to find a skillful assassin that will permanently deal with the Bjorn issue? Joachim Muller said, Yes, but it's hard. He is my oldest son after all. Benjamin said, Oh, I understand. It's hard plotting the cold-blooded murder on someone you love. Joachim said, No, it's not that. I'm cold-blooded, genocidal psychopath. I don't care about emotions. What does bother me, though, is that if Bjorn dies, then you will become my heir. And you won't father any children, due to your preference towards men. Benjamin said, Now, wait a second. Is that the reason that you kept Bjorn ahead of me in the succession order for all these years? This is the 29th century, okay, and no natural conceptions occur on Earth anyways. All I need to do is to marry a social climber and make some babies with her in a lab. Then I can spend my days ruling the planet, and the nights I can allocate to my favorite sodomy. Joachim said, You're right. Never thought about that detail. Very well, my evil son. Make sure Bjorn dies, and you'll be my successor. Benjamin Muller said, Excellent. I know exactly the right person for the job. As it turned out, Benjamin had no clue, and the assassin he sent lacked both the infiltration skills and shooting skills to do the job properly. Chapter 6.5 Bjorn is almost killed by a German-speaking, lederhosen-wearing and homosexual assassin. A week later, Bjorn was studying satellite imagery of the Martian surface to study the chaos down there. There was a lot of troop movements and fighting on the surface, but there was one big problem. How would he identify his real enemies in the Martian Humanist Alliance from all of the other random idiots fighting each other? The Martian political map of 2872 was like a map of Syria in the 2017, with a lot of warring factions, each supported by their own powerful foreign backer, fighting for God knows what reason. Studying the map of Mars, Bjorn knew that House Muller was supporting some Martian faction against another faction supported by House Cheng. But he couldn't remember which faction was supported by House Muller and which factions were supported by House Cheng. Bjorn had an epiphany. His father was correct. Bjorn simply was not very good at his job. With this epiphany, Bjorn had a realization that all the supposedly unaffiliated groups of raiders that were amassing close to the Terran Council's North Pole and South Pole's bases were in fact the Martian Humanist Alliance in disguise, preparing to attack and repel the Terran Council from Mars. Excited over his sudden realization, he was just about to pick up the phone and call Max Wellington when there was a knock on the door. Oh, it was his coffee delivery. Bjorn studied the coffee. It looked so bad, and it wasn't the normal latte art that he usually liked. How was he supposed to drink this shit? And why was the male waiter dressed in tight-fitting lederhosen with an opening for the bum? That didn't exactly improve Bjorn's appetite. Ugh, Bjorn had enough and decided to call out this terrible service. "Hey, waiter," he said, "why are you bringing me this terrible coffee? What's with the lederhosen outfit? And where is my Fritz?" German lederhosen assassin said, "Scheiße, Fritz ist tot. Ich tötete ihn. Seid zu sterben, Herr Muller?" The German lederhosen assassin pulled up his gun, but he was such a bad shot, so he managed to shoot the coffee cup out of Bjorn's hand, instead shooting him in the head that he was aiming for. The hot coffee, mixed with corrosive poisonous acid, splashed on Bjorn's arm, and it burnt him badly. Bjorn quickly ducked behind his desk, looking for a pistol, but all he found was a gold bar. Better than nothing, he thought. He grabbed the gold bar and threw it in the head of the attacker, knocking him unconscious. "Great, the assassin is still alive. I can torture him and find out who sent him," Bjorn thought for a few seconds. And then his trigger-happy and incompetent bodyguard rushed in and killed the assassin permanently with a barrage of bullets. Bjorn said, "Oh shit, why did you kill him? He was knocked unconscious." Jürgen, the bodyguard, said, "Oh, sorry sir, I heard the shooting and shouting. I just thought it was better shooting first and thinking later, just as I was trained to do." Bjorn said, "But why did you let this conspicuous-looking assassin in the first place?" Jürgen, the bodyguard, said, "Well, he was dressed like one of your prostitutes." Bjorn said, "You fucking idiot. This is a man, not a woman. Why would I hire a male prostitute?" Jürgen, the bodyguard, said, "What do you mean? Am I supposed to keep tab on your lovers?" Bjorn said, "Knowing who to let in and who you should not let in is essentially your only job. Now, help me to the medical bay, you moron. I'm injured." Eager to help, Jürgen grabbed Bjorn's arm to help him stand up. Unfortunately, he grabbed Bjorn just where the acid splash had injured him. "Ouch!" Bjorn shouted at the bodyguard. "You irredeemable idiot! You can't even help me to the medical bay without worsening my injury. Now tidy up this mess." I'll go myself. Chapter 6.6 Bjorn Muller fakes injuries to defraud the workers' compensation insurance. A few days later, Adolf Schneider was visiting Bjorn Muller in the hospital bay of the Phobos base. Adolf Schneider said, "How are the tiny superficial wounds from the botched assassin attempt on you healing? And when are you coming back to work?" Bjorn said, "Shh, not so loud." Adolf Schneider said, "I beg your pardon?" Bjorn said, "You forgot to mention that my liver, my teeth, my nostrils, my bionic implants, and my mental sanity also got injured in the ferocious attack that almost claimed my life. I don't know if I'll ever be able to work again." Adolf Schneider said, "Now I'm completely lost." Bjorn Muller looked around the room to see if there was any medical staff member around. After ascertaining that he was alone with Adolf, he relaxed and spoke more openly. He said, "Shh, I'm claiming workers' compensation insurance, and I want to get my whole body fixed on the insurance company's expense. With a bit of luck, I can also claim psychological damages and retire with a generous pension." Adolf Schneider said, "I understand, but I'm still lost. Isn't your father one of the wealthiest persons in the solar system? Why do you need to defraud work cover?" Bjorn said, "Because my father is a bloody tight ass and claims that I would just spend any money he gives to me to buy prostitutes and drugs." Adolf Schneider said, "What about all the money you are bound to have made as a rear admiral for the last 20 years? Bjorn said, "Oh, I spent them all on drugs and hookers." Adolf Schneider said, "Well, at least your father is right about your spending habits. Do you really think Max Wellington will sign off on your excessive insurance claim?" Bjorn Muller said, "He'd sign any claim if it meant that he would get to mismanage Phobos on his own without me putting him in place." Adolf Schneider said, "Oh, so that's what you guys have been up to for the last 20 years. I never figured." Bjorn said, "That's what I do. Did you manage to revive and interrogate the assassin sent to kill me?" Adolf Schneider said, "Unfortunately, your bodyguard, Jürgen, was very good at permanently killing him." Bjorn Muller said, "Yeah, that clown won't win Employee of the Year. First, he failed to protect me against the attack, and then he came in guns blazing when I already had knocked out the assailant." Adolf Schneider said, "Do you think Jürgen was a part of the conspiracy and tried to tie up loose ends when the attack failed?" Bjorn Muller said, "No, Jürgen is too stupid to be in on the conspiracy. Besides, I know who the killer is and who sent him." Adolf Schneider said, "Really? How is that?" Bjorn Muller said, "Simple. My brother Benjamin has this annoying habit of not locking his door when he's doing his naughty business. So a few years ago, I walked in on him sodomizing the assassin." Adolf Schneider said, "So the assassin was Benjamin's gay lover?" Bjorn Muller said, "Yes, I think so." Adolf Schneider said, "Oh no! Benjamin will be so devastated when he finds out that his lover is dead. It's so sad." Bjorn said, "Wait a second, you dickhead. My brother sends a guy to kill me and you pity him. I'm the victim here." Adolf said, "Of course I pity him. He lost someone he loved. You, on the other hand, is lying here whining about a small burn on your arm. Besides, everyone liked Benjamin more than you. He is so courteous, competent, inspiring, and handsome. Bjorn Muller said, "Get the fuck out of my office!" Idol Snyder said, "We are not in your office, sir." Bjorn Muller said, "Oh, sorry, old habit. Get the fuck out of my hospital room, Idol." Chapter 6.7. You have really let yourself go. Keila was conducting surveillance close to the Martian North Pole, and she was studying the gigantic Terran Council fortress that was located there, guarding the magnetic field generator. Tomorrow would be the day for her daring attack, and it was now or never. Suddenly there was a beep in the Divine technology, a notification that Metatron was now back in range. Keila was sighing in relief. It would be great to speak to Metatron again. It had been months since their last conversation. The Divine technology had an arbitrary range limit of 75 million kilometers. And as both Mars and Eden were orbiting the Sun at different speeds, this meant that they had been out of range for each other the last 3 months. Technically, they could have used SpaceNet and social media to communicate, but Keila had learned her lesson and hardly used social media anymore, realizing it was a beacon telling her enemies her location. Ideally, Keila wanted Metatron to contact her, as he would also have received a notification that she was within range. After 10 minutes, eager waiting, but no contact, Keila lost her patience and decided to call the arrogant prick who didn't even love her enough to call her. Her psionic call was answered by a newly awoken, confused Metatron. Oh hey, Metatron here. Who's this?" Keila said, "What do you mean, who's this? It's me, Keila, your one true love." Metatron said, "Ugh, what are you talking about, lady? Keila is young and beautiful. You, on the other hand, you must be close to 50. Keila said, "No, but it is me. The Zetan technology has just aged me for 15 years. Remember when we used the Zetan lover-bind together flowing sex toy in the Divine Dimension together?" Metatron said, "Oh, it is you. You have really let yourself go." Keila said, "Never remark that a woman looks fat and old, Metatron." Metatron said, "Okay, fair point, but I don't think that applies to aging. 30 years in a couple of months. What happened?" Keila said, "Oh, you mean the aging? Oh, I thought you meant that I have just gotten fat. Anyways, I let Rangda possess me and fuel her superpowers with my life force. Shit happens." Metatron said, "I told you that you cannot trust that evil space demon. She deceived you and lied to you." Keila said, "Well, actually, she was pretty straightforward about it. She told me that her superpowers would drain my life force and age me terribly. I reckoned it was a worthwhile trade-off." Metatron said, "How could you possibly agree to those terms?" Keila said, "Well, I know people say they didn't have a choice when they actually do. But I didn't have a choice. You see, my hovercraft exploded and I was flying out of the windscreen in 300 kilometers an hour, head for a cliff wall. Rangda froze the time just before the collision and offered to give me superpowers that would allow me to survive the impact, as well as killing off the 40 elite soldiers that were after me. I reckon some aging was a better deal than a certain death." Metatron said, "Okay, good point. Speaking of other things, are you coming back to Eden soon so you can give birth to our daughter Sabina, who is destined to be the chosen one? Keila said, yeah, about that. Now that I have aged so much, I don't think I'm fertile anymore. Find me a surrogate mother, will you? Metatron said, but what about your vision? Sabina being the chosen one and you and I celebrating her adulthood ceremony together. Keila said, so, I didn't look nearly this old in my vision, so that must have been phony. I got to go now. I got some German butt to kick and a planet to liberate. After this, Keila hung up on Metatron and sharpened her plasma sword. She had some German butt to kick. The bitch was now back. Speaking of her back, it was pretty sore now due to her rapid aging. So before the ass-kicking started, she needed some well-deserved back massage from a stolen massage robot.